Hello, everyone, and welcome to NFL Week 13. So excited to kick off another week of NFL football analysis here on Fumble Sports. So excited to go through a lot of games today that have meaningful implications, whether for your fantasy teams, for your betting, or for NFL standings for all the fans out there. So excited for everyone to join us on Twitter Spaces at Sports Fumble, on YouTube at Fumble Sports. We're going to be covering every game for the next 90 minutes. And then after that, we're going to spend another 90 minutes going through every fantasy start, flex, sit, waiver wire pickup, prop bet that you would possibly need. So a lot of football conversation today on Twitter Space, YouTube, and then on TikTok Live. Excited to have some outstanding people join us today. Adam, we're going to get you going in just a minute. Excited to have you join us today. Blease, as always, thank you. Hoping to have Lope and others join us as we do normally every Sunday. So much to talk about this week. But what obviously is interesting is this week we're coming to that point where meaningful games, whether it's in the division or against other playoff opponents, that could easily have seeding implications, considering the Chiefs and Bengals. You think about in the NFC East, the Commanders against the New York Giants. Obviously, the Titans-Eagles is another big one. So a lot of games with meaningful implications for both the teams, the fans, and obviously everyone at home. Adam, how are you doing this morning?
Real good. It's been a little while. I had a chance to join you. But yeah, glad to be back, Blease. Sweated out a game there for a little while last night, but Michigan rolled and has a chance in the college football playoff. So good for you on that regard. And decent slate of games this week. So yeah, just ready to break it down.
And with that, we will get right into it. For everyone joining us, please follow us on Twitter at Sports Fumble and on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Fumble Sports. And also, I should definitely get his handle in here. Follow Adam, Spotter AJ. That's at Spotter, SPOTTER, at AJ. He brings outstanding analysis every week. Definitely spends a lot of time getting you information to help your pockets fill with cash, or if you're a fantasy player, to help you win your matchups. With that, we'll jump right into the first game in the 1 p.m. window. 3-8 Denver Broncos against the 7-4 Baltimore Ravens. Where I see this is a 9.5-point spread with the over-under set at 39.5 points. That may be moving, though, because we do have some updates on a potential injury or return from injury, as it sounds like Jerry Jeudy will play in this game. Coming out of Adam Schefter, it sounds like, barring some pregame disturbance or issue, he will be playing in this one. So while the Denver Broncos offense is averaging the fewest points in the league, he will be back and giving them an extra weapon on offense. Some gambling trends for you before we throw it to Adam for some analysis. The favorite is 7-2 against the spread in the last 9 meetings between the two teams. The Ravens are 11-2 against the spread in their last 13 games in December. The under is 4-0 in the Broncos' last 4 road games, and the under is 4-0 in the Ravens' last 4 home games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not so sure Jerry Jeudy will make a difference in this game because they still don't have an offense to use him properly, especially with Russell Wilson. So looking at this game, it went 7.5. Opened earlier in the week. It's up to 9.5 now. Like you mentioned, I'm not so sure Jerry Jeudy will move that line much, but I think I'm on the same line as a lot of people at Denver. It's just a mess, right? And now they're back on the road again. I'm not going to touch this line. It's just too high. It could be a backdoor cover because again, you have two teams here that they're just pathetic on offense. Baltimore's 26th in the league in the pass against Denver's 3rd in the league against the pass. So that kind of takes it away there. So you have two teams, in my opinion, that are just going to have to run the football here. So my lean is to the under in this one. Baltimore is 6-2 the last 8 games under, and of course Denver's the under kings of the NFL, 10-1 this year, under 40. The only game that went over the total was back on October 12th against the Raiders. So I think you could buy this up a little bit. It's at 38.5, probably get it to 40 or 40.5, and I would take the under on this one.
Adam, you speak right to my heart. Not only are you picking the under, but you're buying the points to raise the ceiling to make sure you don't bump your head on it. And that's exactly what I'm doing in this game. Like the under for it. As I mentioned, those two trends, Broncos on the road, Ravens at home. The under has been a good play. I certainly like it today. As for the Butt Fumble Sports pick of the day, Baltimore on the money line seems like an easy one to make. At home, coming off a bad loss to Jacksonville. You got to believe Harbaugh is going to get things right this week because they desperately need it with the Bengals coming up in the rearview mirror. And I do like Denver to cover after I buy the 1.5. Getting Denver at a plus 11 feels like a great play. I think Jerry Jeudy does make a difference in something like that because given how poor the Denver offense has been this year, an extra receiver for Wilson to target may account for an extra field goal in this game. Don't think that blows out my total play as I go under, but I certainly think that's going to help me as I go for that cover play. As for a player prop bet, one I really like today, even though he hasn't thrown many picks this year, Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to throw a pick today against that Denver defense. You have a really good secondary. I don't see the receivers for Baltimore being strong enough. It's one of the reasons I like the under, but I think Lamar Jackson's going to throw a pick today. I'm getting that at plus money. Feel good about it. So that's definitely one I'd put out there. Appreciate everyone joining us on Twitter Space and on YouTube. Follow us at Sports Fumble on Twitter and at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube as we go through every game of NFL Week 13. Next up in this 1 p.m. window, the 4-7 Cleveland Browns against the 1-9-1 Houston Texans. This one on CBS. Line movement on this one as well. Where I see it, Browns are an 8-point favorite. The over-under set at 46.5 points. Obviously, the big story in this one, the return of Deshaun Watson. The NFL schedulers got it right, and they've scheduled his return to action against his former team in his old home stadium. We'll see if he performs well today. Adam, how are you feeling about this game?
Well, I think you said it. Deshaun Watson's back, and that's just a complete unknown. He hasn't played for so long. We don't know what to expect. How many, I know he just joined the practicing a couple weeks ago, but how many first-team reps was he really getting? They're all this picketing and all, or whatever you want to call it, of the accusers are going to be at the game, apparently. So there's a lot of unknown going on there. Again, another unknown, Kyle Allen. He's his second start last week against Miami. He was 26 for 39, 215 and a touchdown, but did throw 2 picks. So this game has a lot of unknowns to it. And one thing looking at the stats here, it's interesting. Houston, the last 3 games on the ground, has given up 136 yards from 168. So their rush defense has actually gotten a lot better. Now, Chubb finally did get back on track last week with 26 carries, 116 yards, and a touchdown against Tampa after 2 subpar performances before that. And then the flip side of that coin, Cleveland actually has gotten a little bit worse on the ground from 131 to 154 a game. But Pierce, the last 2 games, has had 15 carries for 16 yards. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. He had some good flashes of good performances. But the last 2 games have been really sub-poor. So for these reasons, I'm just kind of going to leave this one lay alone. I do like Cleveland on the money line in this game. This is a big number, so I would stay away from that with the unknown of Watson. But I do believe that Cleveland is the better football team here. So I do like Cleveland on the money line. And if I had to give a slight lean, I would give a lean to the under just because of Kyle Allen and Deshaun Watson of the unknown putting up a lot of points.
Adam is hitting on our picks as on the graphic, as you can see as you watch us on YouTube. The Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Cleveland on the money line and the under after you buy a 1.5. The under is 4-0 in the Texans' last 5 games overall. As Adam kind of spoke to, they've hit a bit of a rut. They were kind of a cover darling at times this year. The Miami game, they were a backdoor cover for us after we bought the points. But Dameon Pierce has hit the rookie wall. I actually didn't like switching Davis Mills for Kyle Allen. I know Davis Mills was struggling, but I didn't think Kyle Allen was actually an upgrade. I think both quarterbacks are suffering from poor ingredients or poor talent around them. So I certainly don't put the blame on them. And I think Lovie Smith may not see next season. I think that would actually be good for the Texans to move on from him. But that said, the unknown, to Adam's point, is how will Deshaun Watson play with this first team of the Cleveland Browns? I was concerned earlier in the week, but given how the week has kind of played out, Deshaun Watson is clearly aloof. Part of the reason this guy went through the legal awfulness that he has is because this guy clearly doesn't care about the factors that we think he does. We're acting and behaving like his accusers being at the game is going to mean something because it would mean something to us. But Deshaun Watson is clearly beyond that. He really is numb to it. I saw that during the game or during the week, rather, and how he handled press conferences. I'm not going to make comments on his character. I think everyone can kind of understand or pick up what I'm going towards and how I feel about it. But from a gambling standpoint, what I'm saying is that horse doesn't care if the flies are flocking around him. He is someone who clearly is just going to go out there and he's going to ball. That's what he does. This guy is a great football player on the field, and who he is off the field, that's another story. So I think Deshaun Watson will play well today. One of the player prop bets I do like is Amari Cooper over 4.5 receptions. He's been getting consistently over 5 receptions, 6 receptions with Jacoby Brissett. I think Deshaun Watson's going to target him because that is now officially his number one receiver. I think you're going to see chemistry between the two of them almost instantaneously. I think Deshaun Watson's going to play well, in part because Deshaun Watson, when he's on the field, is a great football player. And the fact that this game is in Houston against his old team, I think he's just going to want to rub their face in it a little bit. There's just a lot of bad blood there for a number of reasons. So I don't expect this game to be close. Earlier in the week, I was considering Houston on a cover play simply because I was thinking maybe Deshaun Watson would, have a little bit of understanding of the situation, and that might get to him mentally. I don't think it will. I think Cleveland's going to roll. I think they're going to win on the money line. The only reason I like the under on this one is because I do think the Texans are just challenged on offense. They will have to run the ball with Dameon Pierce. I do think that Nick Chubb is going to have a big day. Kareem Hunt could have a big day. The Houston Texans are the worst team against the run in the NFL, so I absolutely see that being an opportunity to take Chubb in a player prop bet, if you'd like. It was a little too high when I last saw it, but certainly one to look for. Adam, what you got?
Yeah, just real quick to your player prop in this game. Deshaun Watson obviously hasn't played in the game in so long, and game speed is so much different than practice speed. And like we talked about, how many first-team reps has he gotten? So, obviously Houston's defense has really struggled this year, but he is a plus 134 right now, Deshaun Watson, to throw an interception. I think just because of the game speed and trying to get back up and rapport with the receivers, I could easily see him make a mistake here. So if you're getting plus money on Watson to throw an interception, even though it's a bad Houston defense, I think that's something you need to take a look at.
Another one you should consider, kind of to Adam's point, I think Deshaun Watson could easily go over his total rushing yards today. I don't know what that total is set at, but whatever it is, there's something that tells me Deshaun Watson is going to be quick to get out of the pocket, given that he is trying to get back up to game speed. And I think that when you are a great mobile quarterback, one of the things you do is instinct takes over. If you feel like you're kind of uncomfortable and the speed of the game is getting beyond you, what do? You run. You find open space and you just take off. I could see Deshaun Watson getting some rush yards today. Appreciate everyone joining us on Twitter Space at Sports Fumble. Please follow us. We love engaging with you. We put out a lot of content. And of course, at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We'll be doing a TikTok live from 11:30 to 1, taking you up to kickoff as we go through fantasy, answering your fantasy questions. But this next hour and a half, as we're continuing through the 1 p.m. window, is to cover every game of NFL Week 13 and make sure that you have the gambling trends, notes, analysis, and everything you need to cash your tickets. Moving to the next game, a big one in the NFC East. The 7-5 Washington Commanders against the 7-4 New York Giants on Fox. Where I see it, Washington is a 2-point favorite. The over-under set at 40 points. Interesting about this matchup, for the Commanders, they play New York on the road, then they have a bye week, and then they host the Giants once again. So these two teams are going to get very familiar with each other over the next couple of weeks. A couple gambling trends for you before we go to Adam with some analysis. The Commanders are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 road games. The Giants are 4-1 against the spread versus a team with a winning record. The road team is 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between Washington and New York. The under is 8-3 in the last 11 meetings, and the under is 4-0 in the Commanders' last 4 games following a straight-up win. Adam, what are your thoughts on this NFC East showdown?
Well, I'm never a big fan of laying points on the road in a divisional game, but this Washington team seems to be my best bet almost every single week. I've been riding them for the last 3-4 weeks. They're just getting better. Tyler Heineke just doesn't lose football games. He manages games. They run the football. They play defense. They're good for Washington. The last 3, they've run the ball for 160.3 yards per game, And defensively, their pass defense has gotten better. The last three, they've only allowed 154 yards a game. That's second in the league overall. And the rush defense has only allowed 94 of the last three, which is eighth in the league. This Washington team, like I said, they're physical on defense. They come after you. Heineke doesn't make mistakes between Gibson and Robinson in the backfield. They have a good rushing attack. And on the flip side of the coin, the Giants just haven't done a whole lot well lately. The last three games running the football, they've gone from 151 to 123. And that speaks to Barkley even his last two games. 26 carries for 61 yards the last two games, which is not good at all for him. And their rush defense is 26th in the league. And the last three, they've given up 143 yards a game. So to me, Robinson got right last week against Atlanta. He got a lot of carries because Gibson did get dinged up in that game. And I think he's on the injury report this week. I haven't seen if he's playing or not. But Robinson had 18 carries for 105 yards last week against Atlanta. This is a game I think Washington comes in. They play tough physical defense. With the pass yards allowed the last three games and rush yards allowed the last three games, I think the Giants are being a poor situation. And the Giants' secondary has really not been that great the last three games either. Detroit came in there. Houston came in New York, and then in Dallas, obviously, on Thanksgiving. So it's hard. I hate to do it late points in the road in divisional game, but this Washington team, like you mentioned before about Houston was a darling early in the year covering games. This Washington team just finds a way to win football games. So I know it opened at 2, went down to 1.5, but I love Washington in this game with the 1.5 money line. Wrap it up to whatever you want to. I just really like Washington.
The status of Chase Young has kind of been swinging back and forth. He was supposed to play last week, had an illness, supposed to play this week, but all of a sudden there's some talk about we want to see if he's going to be ready at game time because the Commanders have the bye next week. It would add another 2 weeks of time for him to get ready. I really like to see him back on the field, in part because I'd like to see him chasing down Daniel Jones today. As Adam mentioned, Saquon Barkley has been struggling of late, but I don't necessarily put it on him. I think this offensive line of the Giants is banged up. The Giants are dealing with injuries on both sides of the ball in the trenches, defense and offense. I think it's just hurting them. As for the Washington Commanders, they are 5-1 under Taylor Heineke. This guy has some magic to him. He has been throwing about an interception a game. That's why I do have a player prop over half an interception for Heineke. That has been cashing consistently, even though the Giants don't have a lot of takeaways, a lot of interceptions this year. I do think he'll throw one today at MetLife Stadium. That said, I'm with Adam. Washington has just been impressing me. This is a classic Ron Rivera team. I counted them out. I totally disregarded them. And what do? They just fight. They're physical. And that physical mentality and approach, you really see it in Brian Robinson. The touchdowns this guy scores aren't just physical, but they seem to punish opponents. And I'm so excited to see more of him. To Adam's point, I don't know the status of Antonio Gibson. He was on the injury report, as Adam mentioned. So I'm curious to know how many touches Robinson gets. But when Robinson is near an end zone, near a first down, he is one of the toughest running backs right now to stop. He's such an impressive player. Happy to see him getting the kind of production that he is, given the story that he's had all year. The Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Washington on the money line. I was considering New York as a cover play early in the week. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not feeling it. To kind of Adam's points, certain things just aren't going their way. I am considering the under in this one. I think there is an opportunity to take the under, given that both teams are, let's just say, offensively challenged. Terry McLaurin, definitely a nice play for this one. Someone you should definitely consider, whether it's in fantasy, player props, or the like. He's got great chemistry with Taylor Heineke, and I think that will serve the Washington Commanders well against the New York Giants today. Appreciate everyone joining us on Twitter Space. Please follow us at Sports Fumble. If you want to join the conversation, we'd love to have you. I know Kyle's jumping in and out. We'd love to have Kyle join. Adam, please follow Adam. He's a great follow. At Spotter AJ, SPOTTERAJ, bringing you a ton of analysis. Adam is not. Finally, we got Kyle on here. Kyle, how you doing this Sunday morning?
I'm doing all right, Wyatt. I had technical difficulties, but, I'm doing good, man. Thanks.
No issue. Kyle does a great job for us, helping us put together our game pick videos every week. Definitely check out his content at Kyle Phelps 92. He does a great job for us every week. Such a fan of him, such a hard worker, and obviously knows his football. He's got a big matchup today with his team, but we'll get to that in a little while. We will move on to the next game in our 1 p.m. window as we go through all of NFL Week 13. The 4-7 Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off a big home win against the Baltimore Ravens, play the 4-7 Detroit Lions. This game is on Fox. Where I see it, Detroit is a 1-point favorite, and the over-under is 51 points. Some gambling trends for you before we go to Adam and Kyle to get some of their notes on the game. The favorite is 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Jaguars and Lions. The Jags are 1-7-1 against the spread in their last 9 road games, while the Lions are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games overall. And the over is 6-1 in the Jaguars' last 7 road games, as well as the over being 5-2 in the Lions' last 7 home games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this all of a sudden interesting game between the Jaguars and Lions?
Yeah, this is an interesting line movement too, because it opened early in the week at Detroit -0.5. It swung all the way to Jacksonville -1.5. Now I'm showing Detroit -1.5 in this game, but that over under 51. I always say all the time, anything over 49 points in the NFL is so hard. It's so hard to bet on. But these are 2 really bad pass defenses. 25th for Jacksonville and 29th for Detroit. As far as this line in the over, I'm going to stay away from the line. I think you could bet the over down just for the hell of it and have a little fun. Take it, get it down to 49 maybe. But the one thing I'm looking at this game are player props. I do expect some points in this game, so I'm looking at a receiver on both sides of the football. St. Brown, obviously, the last 3 games, he's just been great. He's got 26 receptions for 317 yards and a touchdown. So the anytime touchdown he might be weary of, but his receptions and yards is something to look at for the player props. And I think Kirk on the other side of the ball as well. With the status of ETN as a question mark, he's still on the injury list as questionable. Jacksonville may have to throw to get back in this game and not rely on the run. And Kirk's last 3 had 21 catches for 227 and 3 touchdowns. So there's something to look at there. My one favorite player prop is, but kind of flies under the radar is Jamal Williams. He's getting more of the load in the backfield in this game. In the last 4 games, he's had 24, 16, 17, and 18 carries. His over-under carries today is 15.5. So I'd like the over on that because I think Detroit will try to run the football and control the clock, especially if they get a lead in this game. So I really like that player prop that can go under the radar. And another stat for Jamal Williams, his last 3 games, he's had 5 touchdowns. So that's something to take a look at as well for player props. So aside from the line in this game, I'm staying away. I would buy the over down just to see, just for a little bit of excitement factor if you wanted to. But the thing I'm really looking at this game is some of the player props, especially that Jay Will over 15.5 carries.
A couple notes to match what Adam is saying. Travis Etienne will play in this game. Coming out from Adam Schefter, Travis Etienne is expected to play. Obviously, he was on the injury report, but he had made progress throughout the week. He is playing in this one. DeAndre Swift is playing in this one. And as for Jamal Williams, he has been an absolute touchdown getter this year. I believe he actually leads the NFL in most rushing touchdowns. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Jaguars-Lions?
So it's kind of fascinating how interesting this game is, right? It shouldn't be that interesting between the Jaguars and the Lions, but the Jaguars with the Titans, kind of just being who the Titans are, there is some vague hope that they could get the Titans to, maybe stumble, lose the division. That seems crazy, but like people are talking about it now, which is, it seems insane because the Jaguars have not ever been good. The Lions, on the other hand, they have a little bit better of a chance to actually knock off their division. The Vikings, who are leading their division, still seems pretty unlikely because it would basically require total Vikings collapse. Although the way the Vikings have been playing this year, maybe that's a good shot. But I will say one of my absolute favorite wide receivers in the NFL right now is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was a guy I was actually hoping the Bengals would pick up in the draft, and that didn't happen. That's fine. We got some pretty good players, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the highest rated players at the wide receiver position this year in terms of Pro Football Focus grades. He's I believe ranked number 6 in the NFL, and going up against that Jaguars pass defense. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a high scoring game, but I think because it's going to be a high scoring game, I don't really trust the Jaguars to keep up, and because of that, anything you can possibly put on the Lions this week, I think put it on them, except maybe defense.
Speaking of that Lions offense, Jamison Williams, the first-round pick out of Alabama, will make his NFL debut today, coming off an ACL injury. Just adds to the amount of speed and talent that the Lions have. And it kind of speaks to what Adam and Kyle both just said. In years past, I think a lot of people would have seen a Jaguars-Lions game and would have rolled their eyes and would have gone, oh, that's boring. I hope Red Zone doesn't show it at all. Now I hope it's one of the main featured games in that early window on Red Zone. And why is that? Because there's so much talent on the field. Offensive talent, young talent. It's exciting to see these two teams. And Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff have played really well of late. Trevor Lawrence has thrown 6 passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions in his last 3 games, while Goff has 5 passing touchdowns and just 1 interception in his past 4 games. You're seeing Lawrence start to slowly get better with Doug Peterson. Jared Goff has seemed to play well at home all year. And as Adam mentioned, Jamal Williams, one of the best stories of the NFL in my mind, a guy who was thought to be a backup, kind of thrown away by the Packers, in my opinion, and all of a sudden has a resurgence this year. Instead of being backup to DeAndre Swift, he's kind of usurped him as the RB1 up there in Detroit. Really excited to see this game. Think it's going to be featured a lot on Red Zone, as I mentioned. And for that reason alone, I like the over. Adam mentioned it. I'm going to buy the 1.5 down, get it to 49.5 points, and then hope that we're just seeing a lot of Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence touchdowns all day. The Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Detroit to cover. I do think being at home benefits them. They play so well at Ford Field. And given what I saw against, when they played against the Buffalo Bills, they can play against a really good defense and still put up points. The Jaguars do not have a really good defense. I think the Lions will win this game. I just think it's going to be a shootout in Detroit. Appreciate everyone joining us this morning as Butt Fumble Sports and Friends goes through the entire NFL Week 13 schedule. Can't believe it's already Week 13. For those who are playing fantasy, I know you're getting close to the playoffs. These are some crucial weeks. Join us from 11:30 to 1 p.m. today on TikTok Live as I answer your fantasy questions and help you win your matchups for the week. That said, we're going up until 11:30 here on Twitter Space and on YouTube, going through every NFL game with picks, analysis, gambling trends, and everything you need to cash your tickets. Please follow us on Twitter at SportsFumble and on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at ButtFumbleSports. The next game that we're going to go into, the 7-4 New York Jets against the 9-2 Minnesota Vikings on CBS. Where I see it, Minnesota is a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 44.5 points. This game has one of my favorite matchups of the week as wide receiver Justin Jefferson goes up against cornerback Sauce Gardner. Should be a great one to watch. Some gambling trends for you before we go to Adam and Kyle for their notes. The favorite is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Jets and Vikings. The Jets are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 road games, while the Vikings are 4-1 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. The under is 5-1 in the Jets' last 6 games overall, but the over is 8-2 in the Vikings' last 10 home games. Adam, what's your thought on, again, a very surprising competitive matchup, this one between the Jets and Vikings?
Yeah, I think you're right. Another surprising matchup for this one. And obviously the Jets finally pulled the trigger or made the move at quarterback last week to White at home against Chicago. And they had a really good game, 22, 28, 315, and 3 touchdowns. So I don't think anyone expected that. Obviously, we expected somebody to come in there and play better than Wilson, which he did. But that was against a very poor Chicago defense, a Trevor Siemian-led Chicago offense. Jets had more possessions, but then again, he didn't turn the football over and he played well. So that's something to be said for that. And the flip side of the coin, Minnesota comes off that Thanksgiving game win against New England. Pretty easy win there. They had a lot of extra rest. So I think in the early window at home, I think Minnesota should get the edge in this game, but I really do like defense a lot. And I think this game with the Jets limiting Cousins, what he can do, I think Mike will come back to earth a little bit in this game. So my lean is towards the under in this one. I like the under. I'd buy it up a little bit to about 45, and I would take the under on this one. I'm just not sure if White can replicate what he can do. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Cousins replicates his 300-yard, 3-touchdown passing performance against his Jets defense either. I think it's turned a little bit of a stalemate. So I really like the under in this game. As far as the line goes, I would lean Minnesota, buy it down under 3, just for the fact that they're 5-1 at home this year, and they do play better in the early window and not in primetime games.
There is nobody hotter on earth than Kirk Cousins at home in a 1 p.m. game. If you take off those bright lights of prime time and stick him at home, Kirk Cousins all of a sudden turns into Tom Brady, it seems. So, yeah, it has been a trend we've seen in weeks and years past. Kyle, what are your thoughts on this game?
Kirk Cousins is the new Andy Dalton, Wyatt. Great at 1 p.m., but I gotta say, Sauce Gardner, baby. That is who everybody should be paying attention to this week. And I'm gonna agree with Adam. Hammer that under because the Jets passing defense, top 5 passing defense in the NFL. Sauce Gardner, best cornerback in the NFL, and he's a rookie. Are you kidding me? So. And then the Jets offense, obviously we know the Jets offense has their issues. So the under, I'd take the under. But I'm watching this game 100% just to see like the matchup that you said between Sauce Gardner and Justin Jefferson. They're two fascinating players to watch, but I think Sauce wins it. And I think the Jets are going to come away winners in this one, and the Vikings, Vikings going to be making Lions fans very happy this week.
Wow, love the take from Kyle on this one. Just to kind of touch on the matchup that he mentioned, Justin Jefferson just 1 yard behind Tyreek Hill for most receiving yards this season. Meanwhile, Sauce Gardner, despite being a rookie, leads the NFL in passes defended, having an outstanding season. This is one where if we were doing like the Manning cast or, the simulcast, you could just have a camera on these two guys going at it all day, and I'm sure the ratings would be outstanding. That said, Adam kind of mentioned it. Mike White had a massive day last week, but against the Chicago Bears defense. And so a lot of people are kind of discounting that. I'm not necessarily doing that because I saw Mac Jones absolutely torch the Minnesota Vikings defense a week ago. And no, I don't think the Patriots offense is too spectacular given what I just saw on Thursday against the Bills. So the fact that Mike White is hot right now, and maybe more importantly, the fact that Garrett Wilson is getting involved in the Jets offense is really meaningful to me. Garrett Wilson is a star. And the fact that Zach Wilson wasn't getting him involved enough, I thought was one of the biggest indictments of Zach Wilson. Because if Garrett Wilson isn't getting the ball enough, that would be like saying Kirk Cousins isn't getting Justin Jefferson the ball enough. It's an indictment on the quarterback. I hope to see more of Elijah Moore, given that, again, he was kind of in the doghouse or his chemistry with Zach Wilson was poor. I'd like to see the Jets offense diversify a little bit, and I think they will with Mike White. I think he is much like a Taylor Heineke. He is a more disciplined, seasoned quarterback who will make the most out of his opportunities. He will read defenses better. He will be more accurate. He's going to make a lot of opportunities come to fruition. And against a Vikings defense that gives up opportunities, I like the Jets in this one from an offensive standpoint. And from a defensive standpoint, I think they're going to tie up the Vikings at times. But the Vikings now with Hawkinson and Cook and Thielen and Jefferson, I think have enough weapons to stay competitive and ultimately win this game. But kind of splitting the difference between Adam and Kyle, I have the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Minnesota on the money line because I do like Kirk Cousins at home in a 1 p.m. game. Don't want to bet against him or bet for him to lose in that spot. Just doesn't match the trends. However, I like the Jets to cover. I'm going to buy the 1.5, get Jets at plus 4.5. I think this is ultimately going to be a field goal game or less. I really think it's going to be competitive throughout. Again, a matchup early in the season that if I had said to you, can I sell you Vikings Jets, you probably would have gone, nope, I'm skipping that one. But I think it's going to be really competitive throughout. This is a fourth quarter game. For that reason alone, I think it's not just worth the time, but worth the betting play. I really like this one. A player prop I do like for it is Mike White over 1.5 touchdowns. I'm getting that at plus money. Part of the reason I like that is I'm not crazy about the running game this week of the New York Jets. And again, that Minnesota Vikings defense, they give up a lot of pass yards. Tyler Conklin, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson. I think between the weapons that he has, Mike White finds a way to throw 2 touchdowns. Appreciate everyone joining us this morning as we go through all of NFL Week 13. Please follow us at Sports Fumble on Twitter and at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Appreciate those joining us and giving us analysis. Adam, please give him a follow at Spotter AJ, and of course, Kyle, who does such a brilliant job for us, at Kyle Phelps 92. To our next game in this window, I know Adam has his eyes set on this one. This is the 4-8 Green Bay Packers traveling to Soldier Field to play the 3-9 Chicago Bears on Fox. Green Bay is a 4.5-point favorite where I see it, and the over-under is set at 44.5 points. Some gambling trends for you before we go around and break it down. The over is 6-0 in the Bears' last 6 games overall. The over is 4-1 in the Packers' last 5 versus the NFC. The over is 4-1 in the Bears' last 5 versus the NFC. And the favorite is 20-8 against the spread in the last 28 meetings between the two teams. Adam, big game in the NFC North between two teams that are probably out of the playoff race, but there's a lot of pride on the line. What do you think about Packers-Bears?
Yeah, if there wasn't a nail in the coffin to the Packers season, it happened against Philadelphia last week. Like I mentioned, that defense is just so poor against the run, the injuries to linebacker. Now, granted, I did mention that they were going to give up some rushing yards to Hurts and Sanders, but for God's sake, 363 yards rushing, it's absolutely ridiculous what that Packer defense gave up. Joe Barry, the fact that he is even still on the staff as our defensive coordinator is a joke. I know he's LaFleur's buddy. He should be gone tomorrow. Like, he should be gone as soon as that plane landed back in Green Bay. He should have been fired. This defense is just atrocious. And Green Bay laying 4.5 in this game. Who should be Green Bay be laying points to anybody right now? With this defense and with Rodgers trying to play through this thumb injury, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but my goodness, it's astonishing to me that the Packers are favored against anybody right now. And for all intents and purposes, Fields is playing today from everything that I saw, and he's going to have fresh legs. So if they give up 363 yards rushing to Philly, now they're going to go to Chicago against the number 1 rushing team in the league with Fields. And Chicago has every, this could be their season right here to finally beat Green Bay. We all know Rodgers owns the Bears. Even though we have an off season, we still run right through Chicago. So this is a big game for Chicago to have. So I think Green Bay laying points in this game is crazy to me. I do think they will be able to move the football and score. There is a chance Romeo Doubs for us will play today, which would be good. Get him back on the field with Watson and Lazard for the offense. The thing I would be careful for is Rodgers and with his thumb and how bad it really is. I know he wants to play, and the thoughts of Packer Nation right now is that he wants to play against Chicago, get this win, and then heading into the bye week, one of two things can happen. He can either rest it or he'll go on IR the rest of the year, depending what happens in this game, because the season is essentially over and everyone's been pushing to see what we do have in Jordan Love. So I would lean to the over in this game. I think both teams will be able to score. As far as player props that I'm looking at, Christian Watson obviously has been a stud the last 3 games. He's gone over his total this week of 47.5. So I would definitely look at Watson over that. He can cover that in one play, which you saw last week. He's definitely proving to be the real deal. Justin Fields, 66.5 rushing yards is what his total is today. I would definitely go over that. He's gone over 5 of the last 6 games in that. We know how poor this Packer rush defense is, and the inside linebacker position has been so bad. And one thing to take a look at, which is plus money, is Justin Fields' last 5 games. He's had 1 rush touchdown in each game. And that's at a plus 160 today for anytime touchdown. So I think you can get some really good value with that with Justin Fields. But as far as the line goes in this game, I can't play it. I would buy it up and take Chicago if you were to do anything. But I would definitely buy the points down a little bit and play the over. And then there's a couple player props that I mentioned.
Just speaking on Adam's point, Aaron Rodgers has historically owned the Chicago Bears, 23-5 career record with 63 passing touchdowns, only 10 interceptions, and the Packers have won their last 7 against the Bears. But there's a lot of reason to feel differently about this one. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Packers-Bears?
You beat me to it. I was going to bring up Aaron Rodgers' record against the Bears. That is absolutely ridiculous, and the Bears should be ashamed of themselves for letting that be a thing. It's kind of like how I feel about my Bengals and Ben Roethlisberger. But anyway, the point being that the Bears can't let that continue, and I really don't think that they do let it continue this week. The Packers are not good against the run. The Chicago Bears are very good against the run. Adam mentioned that. But I think the other thing to pay attention to is from a defensive perspective, the Bears aren't really particularly great against the run either, but they're pretty decent against the pass. What is it? They have 9 interceptions on the season, which ranks top 10 in the NFL. Their issue is more so that they have trouble getting pressure on the quarterback. I think they have 16 sacks in the NFL this year, which is, oh God, it's last in the NFL. So, it's really a question of, I think, that thumb for Aaron Rodgers. Is he going to be able to, I think, put the ball in the places he needs it to go? He's wanting to go in there and be able to say, I own you to the Chicago Bears again. But the question is he going to be physically able to navigate this Bears defense? They're not going to put a whole lot of pressure on him, but they do apparently know how to put defensive schemes together in a way that confuse opposing quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers is a veteran, though, so we'll see if that's going to if that's going to be an issue for him or not. But I do think that the Chicago Bears come away with the victory this week. I think Justin Fields has a big game running the football. Maybe not so much passing the football, but we'll see. But yeah, that's my pick, Bears.
If Blease could help me out, I'd love to put out a poll. Is this Aaron Rodgers' last game as the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers? Because to Adam's point, I do think Rodgers is even setting himself up and setting Packers Nation up for the idea that after he plays this game, in his mind, after he beats the Bears, Jordan Love may step in, giving the Packers an opportunity to evaluate him the remainder of the year while Rodgers goes on IR. I don't know where this relationship is going. This feels very Tom Brady, Tom Brady Patriots-esque to me, which it feels like there's a divorce or a breakup in the works. I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out, but I think Aaron Rodgers wants to end his time as a Packer again with a win against the Bears. I do think that could be a storyline that plays out. Sorry, Adam, I know that's only throwing a bit of sand on and shade on your team. But that said, going to how I actually think this game will play out, Adam really put a perfect nail on it. The running game of the Bears is outstanding. One of the player props I like in this one is David Montgomery. You could also go with Justin Fields. There's just a lot of opportunities. The Packers are bad against the run. They're going up against a good run team. As for the passing game of the Packers, I think Romeo Doubs being healthy could make a difference. Christian Watson has played well. For me, I'm not really liking this game. I'm kind of trying to fade away from it in most of my bets. I'm throwing in a few parlays, Green Bay on the money line. The only reason the Butt Fumble Sports pick is Green Bay on the money line is I'm just going off of trends in history. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers seem to own the Chicago Bears over the last how many years? Over the last decade plus. So for that reason, I'm going with Packers on the money line. Do I feel great about it? Not really. Whether it's the health status of Justin Fields, the health status of Aaron Rodgers, I think there's just a lot of question marks and variables in this game that really don't make this one appealing to me from a gambling standpoint. But we try to give you a pick every week for every game. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Green Bay on the money line, as we expect Rodgers to continue his ownership of the Bears. Blease, what you got for us?
You said Rodgers' last game in Chicago, or just overall last?
No, last game. Will this be the last game in which Aaron Rodgers is the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers? Because if he plays this game and wins or loses, to Adam's point, will the Packers then put him on IR for the remainder of the year and give Jordan Love the opportunity to play out the final few weeks of the year, allowing them to evaluate him, and obviously for Rodgers, get healthy and move into whatever stage of off-season craziness drama that we'll ultimately have? That would be, to me, an interesting poll question, only because, one, I think Packer Nation would have strong opinions about it, but I actually think it will come to fruition. I think Adam, unfortunately, is reading some of the tea leaves right in his analysis. He's such a good Packers fan, and his commentary on the Packers the last few weeks has been spot on. So shout out to Adam. You really know your team. But I feel like there's just something in the works. Rodgers is someone who really, he tells you what's on his mind, even while he thinks he's being coy about it. And he's telling you he's open to Jordan Love taking on that starting role and letting Rodgers kind of fade out the rest of the year, given the Packers aren't in contention. A lot to talk about, but we'll get to all of that. You can hear rants on all of that at another time. Make sure you follow us at Sports Fumble on Twitter, at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We're taking you up until 11:30 with our bets as we go through all of NFL Week 13. And then from 11:30 to 1 p.m., We're going to jump on TikTok Live at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok Live, as I will answer all of your fantasy questions for an hour and a half as we take you up to kickoff. Also follow those who are giving us great analysis today. Adam does a fantastic job. Love his picks and his takes every week. Follow him at Spotter AJ, SPOTTER AJ, and of course Kyle as well, Kyle Phelps at Kyle Phelps 92, KYLEPHELPS 92. These guys do such a great job for us every week, and they're giving you great analysis, so definitely give them a follow. The next game we're going to talk about is the 4-7 Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the 5-7 Atlanta Falcons on CBS. This game has had crazy line movement throughout the week. It's been Falcons favored, then it's been even. It even got to a point where the Steelers were favored, and now it's back to a pick'em game, straight up pick'em. The over-under is set at 42.5 points where I see it. Some gambling trends for you before we go around and break it down. The Steelers are 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 road games, but the Falcons are 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. The under is 4-1 in the Falcons' last 5 games in December, and the over is 5-2 in the Falcons' last 7 games following a straight-up loss. Early in the year, the Falcons were a cover darling, and now they've been struggling to cover the spread. Adam, how do you see the Steelers-Falcons playing out?
Yeah, these are two teams that really struggled to get a hold of this year, Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Pittsburgh's 2-4 on the road. Atlanta is much better at home and 4-2. Two pretty poor defenses against the pass. Offensively, Atlanta runs the ball really well at 4th in the league. It's really the only thing good out of here. The one thing that the Steelers do well is they stop the run. So I think that's a strength against strength. So I think it's going to lead to a little bit more of an air attack at home. But again, this is two teams I've been on the wrong side of, this crazy live movement. The one thing I would look at in this game is this Olamide Zaccheaus. He's actually came on last week with 5 catches for 91 yards, and with Pitts being out, he might be getting some more action and get more involved in the offense. So I think because Steelers will stop the run, Atlanta will have to throw the football a little bit more. He has an over/under receptions today of 2.5 at a +120. So I think that's a good play, a player prop here. But as far as the line and the total, I would have a slight lean to the over just because these Atlanta games at home can get a little out of hand, as we saw with Carolina a few weeks ago. But I'm just on the wrong side of Pittsburgh and Atlanta every week. So I'm just going to lay low on this game and take a look at that Zaccheaus player prop.
Kyle, what are your thoughts?
The Pittsburgh Steelers and Atlanta Falcons are both really confusing football teams. I think that's my first thought. The Atlanta Falcons, obviously, this year have been kind of on and off, being in contention for the playoffs, and still kind of are, considering everybody in the NFC South is just terrible. So it's really kind of fascinating to see them continuing to hang on by a thread, which I've thought in the past has kind of been would have been their MO if they had maybe a worse division to play in, which at least all 4 teams being just god awful. That's just where we're at this point. The Steelers playing the AFC North, obviously, which is a much better division. The Steelers they're out of it. They've been gone for a while, but they have been putting things together. I don't want to say they've been actively, really impressive, but they have been putting things together a lot better lately. They're winners of 2 of their last 3 games. And they still got 30 on my Bengals when, the Bengals haven't been letting a whole lot of 30-point games go this year. Now, granted, some of that was some garbage time at the end, but I think one thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers oddly enough do not do well this year is run the football, which I say oddly enough because obviously there's all that hype around Najee Harris, and especially with the quarterback situation and everything in Pittsburgh since Najee Harris has been there. There's been a lot of there's been a lot of focus on, well, he's going to have to ball out, he's going to have to be great, and that's how the Steelers are going to have a chance. The problem is the Steelers' offensive line is that they've neglected it, and they've let it fall into essentially a state of ruin. So I think that's a big reason why Najee Harris is having a problem. The thing is, going up against the Atlanta Falcons is when it comes to run defense, they're kind of middle of the pack, really. So it's really, I think it's just going to come down to, I understand why it's a pick 'em, right? It's really going to come down to which team do you just like more. Personally, I like the moxie and the drive that I've seen out of the Atlanta Falcons this year. I don't really like any of the players on the team except for, I suppose, Cordell Patterson, as football players, not as human beings. Whereas the Steelers, I struggle to find players who I really believe in. So just from that standpoint, I think just like on the straight up pick, I take the Atlanta Falcons. As far as any other bets beyond that, really hard to say because these are two really chaotic teams.
I don't know if that analysis is influenced by the Cincinnati fandom of Kyle, but we'll get to that in a second as we'll get to Titans we'll get to Chiefs Bengals in a little bit. But my pick on this one, they kind of spoke, Adam and Kyle both spoke to it. These are two teams that have a lot of uncertainty. The trends that we followed throughout the year, as I mentioned earlier, the Falcons were kind of a cover darling for the first 6 weeks of the season. They haven't been that way recently. At home, they do play better. They are a much better team at home, especially against the spread. But I like what I'm seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know they had one less day of rest because they played on Monday night. But Kenny Pickett, he didn't put up great stats, but he put up some pretty good throws against a decent Colts secondary. And the Falcons don't have a good secondary. They allow, I believe, the fourth most passing yards in the NFL. And that said, one of the prop bets I like for today is George Pickens over 44.5 receiving yards. I also could see him getting his over total receptions in this one. But the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this game is Pittsburgh on the money line. I go in that direction for two reasons. TJ Watt and Mike Tomlin. The best player on the field in this game is TJ Watt. He's for the Steelers. The better coach is on the Steelers sideline as well. When you're in a pick'em situation, I lean towards where the best player is. I lean towards where the best head coach is. Usually I lean towards the better quarterback. But in this one, I think Pickett and Mariota are truly a toss-up. I like the progress I'm seeing from Kenny Pickett, but that can always go away with a young quarterback. As for Mariota, I think that this guy is fighting for his job. I'm surprised Desmond Ridder has not been inserted as starting quarterback yet. I really think that's more of a function of how the NFC South is playing out. If the Buccaneers had won last week, if the Buccaneers had kind of stretched their lead in the NFC South, would the Falcons have made a move to Desmond Ridder to see what they have in the young quarterback? I think so. Mariota knows his time as starting quarterback is starting to run out. So whenever you get a guy with his job on the line, I don't know how to necessarily pick it. That said, I'm going to go with Pickett in this one, and I'll take Pittsburgh on the money line. Appreciate all of you joining us on Twitter Spaces at Sports Fumble. Give us a follow. Also give a follow to our speakers, Spotter at Spotter AJ. Thank you, Adam. And of course, Kyle at Kyle Phelps. Also give us a follow on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We will be going up until 11:30 as we go through all of our picks for NFL Week 13. And then from 11:30 to 1 p.m. at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok Live, we'll answer all of your fantasy questions, any analysis you need on bets as well, to help get you ready for your week to make sure you're cashing tickets and winning your fantasy matchups. The last game of the 1 p.m. window today is probably the best game of the 1 p.m. window. The 7-4 Tennessee Titans go up against the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles on Fox. Where I see it, the game was a 4.5-point spread, but it has moved to 4 points as money has come down on the Titans. The over-under is set at 44 points where I see it. Some gambling trends for you before we go around and break it down. The Titans are 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 games overall, but the Eagles are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 home games. The Titans are 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings with the Eagles. The over is 4-0-1 in the last 5 meetings, and the over is 10-1 in the Eagles' last 11 home games. Adam, what do you think about this big game with big playoff implications for the AFC and NFC between the Titans and Eagles?
Yeah, this is an interesting football game. Definitely one of the best of the day. Tennessee obviously coming off that loss to Cincinnati 2016. Philadelphia with an easy win over the Packers. This is interesting because Philly's offensively is far superior to Tennessee. But Philadelphia, third in the league in rushing, is going to go up against a third-ranked run defense in Tennessee. So to me, that tells me that Tennessee will shut this down, and you can start looking at a little bit of Philadelphia player props in this game. Brown is a plus 110 right now, over 5.5 receptions. The last 2 games, he's had 9, 4, and 5 respectively. I think you can get some good value with him in this game. Devontae Smith has been emerging, so I think Brown could get some more one-on-one matchups. So I think that's something to take a look at as far as that goes. And with Tennessee, Tennessee's just a covering machine. I mean, they seemingly cover every single week. I think they've only not covered once in the last 8 or 9 games. I thought I had written down, but I didn't. But they're really good against the spread. They're 4-2 on the road, and Tennessee's always in football games. They're never out of them. Doesn't matter who they are. Cincinnati, at Kansas City, they're always in the game. They're just a good, fundamentally sound football team. I know offensively they struggle with Tannehill, and as long as he can manage the game and Tennessee can stop the run, I think you buy the points up here back to 6 or 6.5, and take Tennessee, and definitely take a look at some of those Philadelphia offensive player props in this game, as I think they're going to have to throw the football more and not rely on a 360-yard rushing performance that they did against the Packers.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think I am really excited to see two of the best rushing teams in the NFL go up against each other. Derrick Henry, who in my opinion is the best running back like overall in the NFL, going up against, Miles Sanders, who's kind of really come on lately. And a lot of people have talked this year about how the Philadelphia Eagles are frauds because of, like they've been winning, but, likening it to that, that 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team from a couple of years ago who started playing some real teams and got smacked. But the Eagles, I really like the way that they play football, right? Like, I mean, they have some holes, but on the whole, like they're Adam was talking about them, the Tennessee Titans being a very fundamentally sound football team. At least from an offensive perspective, that's how I feel about the Philadelphia Eagles. Like Jalen Hurts is a fantastic quarterback. Miles Sanders is a fantastic running back, and Boston Scott and all them, and Kenneth Gainwell in the backfield. They've got a lot of talent on that football team. A.J. Brown coming in, I think, was the final piece of the puzzle that really put them over the edge to where they can really be competitive like this. They're a true Super Bowl contender, and I haven't put them at number 1 in my power rankings all year, but I've had them pretty consistently in the top 5 just because they were a really, really good football team, and I think they don't get enough credit for how good they really are. The Tennessee Titans, they're good, but I think they get a little overrated. Just be like, they are very fundamentally sound, but that's really about it. Derrick Henry's a great football player. Ryan Tannehill is sometimes a great football player, but he's not always the best. I think this game is going to come down to basically who can just kind of like push the trenches a little bit more. And maybe I'm a little biased because I just watched the Cincinnati Bengals shut down Derrick Henry, and he didn't look all that amazing to me in that game. But I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win in the trenches this week, especially in terms of that fantastic pass rush that they have. So the Titans aren't going to run the ball the entire game. That's just not the way the NFL works. And that's about the only way that I would see the Titans would come away with a win in this game, is if they were to just basically just give it to Derrick Henry and be like, here, you go win the football game, you go do it. If they do that, then maybe they have a chance. But the problem is I don't think they're going to be able to slow down the Philadelphia Eagles passing attack enough to make that a realistic option, which obviously in the NFL isn't anyway. But I'm taking the Eagles here, and I think I'd put I think I'd take the over in the totals in the spread.
2 injuries that I'm having my eye on, or players who have been injured who could come back, and it speaks to Kyle's point about who's in the trenches. Jeffrey Simmons for the Tennessee Titans. Will he play? If he does, he's going to be a big force going straight up against Jason Kelce. I think that's actually one of the great trench matchups you could see all NFL Week 13. Center for the Eagles, Jason Kelce against Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle of the Tennessee Titans. On the other side of the ball, Jordan Davis. If Jordan Davis, the rookie out of Georgia, is healthy, that's going to make a big difference putting that big man up front as they try and stop Derrick Henry. To Kyle's point, I think this game is all about who wins in the trenches. Mike Vrabel is a guy, though, who knows how to control a football game like today, where he's going up against a favorite that has a star-studded offense. I think the Titans will benefit from having their center, Ben Jones, back. He had been out with a concussion. He will be playing today. I think part of the reason the Titans looked so poor on offense last week in the run game was because they didn't have their starting center. His return, I do think, makes a difference. This game is one of the Butt Fumble Sports best bets of the day. I didn't mention the other one earlier. My 2 best bets of the day, We've gone 17-8 on our best bets this year so far, but the two best bets of the day from Butt Fumble Sports are Jacksonville, Detroit over 49.5 points, and the Titans to cover +6. On both of those, you want to buy the 1.5 to make sure you're covering and cashing your ticket. So obviously I just gave away my pick for this one, but the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this game is Tennessee to cover after you buy a 1.5. But much like Kyle, I do like Philadelphia on the money line. So I'm on both sides of this one. I think it's a closer game. I think it's competitive. I think the Eagles find a way to win at the end, more because Jalen Hurts, to Kyle's point, extremely talented, will make enough plays. I think it's going to be the passing game for the Eagles that will ultimately win out. I think Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown will both have big days, but my expectations are Derrick Henry has a good game on the ground. This game stays close. Tennessee covers, but Philadelphia hits the money line. Appreciate all of you joining us as we go through NFL Week 13 up until 11:30, and then we're going to go over to TikTok Live to answer your questions to help you cash your bets and win your fantasy leagues. Appreciate the follow at Sports Fumble on Twitter, at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. As we move to the 4 p.m. slate of games, the 8-3 Miami Dolphins versus the 7-4 San Francisco 49ers on Fox is where we're going to start. The 49ers are a 4-point favorite where I see it, and the over-under set at 46.5 points. One note that I want to bring up before I bring up gambling trends, it does look like both tackles for the Miami Dolphins could be out for this one, which could make a big difference. So offensive line troubles for Miami. As for some gambling trends before we go around and give some analysis, the road team is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the Dolphins and 49ers. The Dolphins are 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 games following a straight-up win, but the 49ers are 7-2 against the spread in their last 9 home games. The over is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings between the Dolphins and 49ers, and the over is 4-1 in the Dolphins' last 5 road games. Adam, what are your thoughts on this big matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, it's up with the coaching of this game. Obviously, McDaniel coming from San Fran, Shanahan and him know each other very well. I think McDaniel could really put a good offensive game plan together, but you hit on it. There's a lot of unknown. Both starting tackles not playing this game is massive, in my opinion, against the San Francisco team that is just, defensively really good. Seems to get better every single week, and both of the boys in the defensive line could really cause problems for Tua. So I would be really careful with Tua and some of the offensive player props through the air for Miami for that reason. But on the other side of that coin, I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to want to have a good game. Coming from San Francisco to Miami, I think they might rely on him a little bit more. His over-under rush attempts right now is at 11.5. I think that can go over that number. Miami may have to lean a little bit more in the running game with both tackles out and not leave Tua exposed. But to that point as well, Tua is getting a plus 110 on an interception. He has not thrown in an interception in the last 6 games, but because of that, those tackles being out and if they do fall behind, I could definitely see Tua throwing an interception against this tough defense. As far as line on the total, I'm going to kind of stay away from it on this one. I'm just not really on, I'd like Miami earlier in the week, but now with the tackles being out, I'm not a big fan of it. And you've been on San Francisco the last few weeks as the most complete team, maybe the best team in the league. So another player prop that I would play in this game, staying away from the total on the side, is Garoppolo. Over under passing yards right now is at 249.5. He's gone under that number the last 4 games. And with Miami being a little bit poor against the rush the last 3 games, 133, I can see them running the football a little bit more. And also to that point, Miami's last 3 games, they've come down from 233 yards a game to only allowing 158. So I think under Garoppolo passing yards could be another player prop you can look at in this game.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this big game between the 49ers and Dolphins?
I think these are 2 of the absolute hottest teams in the NFL playing up against each other right now. The 49ers, winners of their last 4 games straight. The Dolphins, winners of the last 5 games straight. The Dolphins obviously have the better overall record, but I think both these teams are, they're getting hot, and I do think that the Dolphins not having their 2 tackles, their offensive linemen, is going to be a big issue this week, because the 49ers have at the very least a solid pass rush, one of the top 10 best in the NFL, whereas the Dolphins really thrive on their passing game. They've got the best passing attack in the NFL, like per Pro Football Focus, the best. Period. Point blank. That's better than the Kansas City Chiefs, better than the Bengals, better than the Eagles. Nobody else comes close to Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. But the problem is they have already a not so great pass blocking offensive line unit. And now you're taking two of their offensive linemen away. I think that, you know, I think the 49ers are going to cause havoc this week. And it is going to be like I said the Steelers and the Falcons were chaotic teams. This is going to be a chaotic football game. I see probably a lot of turnovers from the Dolphins side, and the Dolphins can only hope that they're going to be able to equally match those turnovers on the San Francisco 49ers side. But ultimately, I think I'm taking the San Francisco 49ers to win this one because I think Tua is just going to get ravaged there in the backfield. I don't really believe in I believe in Tua Tagovailoa as a great quarterback, but just with the situation he's up against, I think it's going to be really hard for him to overcome what looks like a really, really great football team right now.
The name to keep the name to be aware of today is Nick Bosa. He's third in the NFL with 11.5 sacks, and he's the guy who's going to be causing havoc in that Dolphins backfield, to Kyle's point, without the tackles on the field. I think Mike McDaniel will come up with a really smart game plan. We'll try to get the ball out of Tua's hands really fast. So I see a lot of quick passing plays to Hill and Waddle, but unfortunately, I don't think it's enough. I think San Francisco is the money line play in this one, much like Adam earlier in the week. I liked Miami as a cover play, so I do have some tickets from Tuesday on that. But I've liked San Francisco this whole week. I think they are the best team right now in the NFL. That said, once these tackles come back from Miami, don't be surprised if this is a Super Bowl preview. I know that sounds crazy right now, but I could absolutely see Miami making a run in the NFL playoffs. And I think San Francisco right now, other than the Eagles, is the class of the NFC. So that said, the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is San Francisco on the money line. I do like Miami to cover. I'm going to buy the 1.5 and try and get them on a cover play. I do think this is competitive. I just love their offense. So despite the tackles being out, I do have them covering with San Francisco on the money line. Appreciate everyone joining us on Twitter Spaces at Sports Fumble. Give us a follow. And of course, follow our speakers as well at Spotter AJ and at Kyle Phelps 92, doing a great job giving you some great analysis. And of course, follow us at Butt Fumble Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We're going to go really quick on this next game because it is not one of the better matchups of the day. So guys, just give a quick pick and then we'll move on from it. This is the 6-5 Seattle Seahawks going up against the 3-8 Los Angeles Rams on Fox. This line has moved where I saw it earlier in the week. It was -7 in favor of Seattle with the over at the over under set at 41 points. But it's moved now that Matthew Stafford is officially out. This is a backup game for the Rams. This is a must-win for Seattle. Adam, Kyle, let's get some quick picks. Adam, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I don't think it matters. Perkins out, Wolford back in at quarterback for the Rams this week. It's a big number. I would just fold Seattle in some money line parlays on this one. That's about as far as I would go with this game.
Kyle, what's your quick pick for it?
Seattle, and Seattle to cover and to everything. The Rams are already bad, and now they're even more injured than they already were. They don't have Matthew Stafford. Seahawks.
I'm with these guys. I'm taking Seattle on the money line. I'm taking the under, given there's no Aaron Donald, there's no Matthew Stafford. Where are the Rams getting their points? So Geno Smith and the Seahawks offense could put up some points today. But other than that, Seattle on the money line and the under is the play for me. Let's move on to the next game. Big one in the AFC West. The 6-5 Los Angeles Chargers chasing after a wild card spot go up against the 4-7 Las Vegas Raiders coming off their big win in Seattle. This game is on CBS. Where I see it, the Raiders were a 1-point favorite. I believe the line has now moved to -2, but the over-under set at 49.5. Adam, what's your take on this AFC West battle?
Well, I can make this one short and sweet. I am done with the Las Vegas Raiders. The last 2 weeks, I've gotten smoked in overtime. I had Denver, lost that game. I had Seattle at 2.5 last week. Carlson misses a field goal. They get another opportunity. Jacobs breaks that run. Like, I'm done. So if I'm ever on here breaking down a Vegas Raiders game, just mute me, kick me off the space or anything, because I have absolutely nothing to do with this team anymore in any game they're involved in. The only thing I will say is that the Chargers are getting really healthy. I like Justin Herbert. He's getting some weapons back. I know Williams is probably dinged up again. But again, and I said the last couple of weeks, Joshua Palmer is really emerging as a primary target for Herbert and as a wide receiver in this league. His over-under today, receiving yards, is 55.5. He's gone over that number 4 the last 5 games. And against this poor Vegas pass defense at times, I do like that. But as far as the side and everything in this game, I'm just done with the Raiders the rest of the season.
Before we go to Kyle, Blease, what do you have for us?
I like that take, and I want to hear your take as well, Wyatt, on that, because I know you share a similar sentiment. But I just want to know why the line moved. Like when we did the Tuesday show, Chargers were favored by 2. Now it's shifted all the way to the Raiders favored. So what has come out?
I think the reason for that twofold. One, there was some concern about Josh Jacobs. He's dealing with a calf injury. He is going to play today. And on the other side of the ball, Mike Williams will not play today. Mike Williams is out with an ankle injury. So I think those 2 big offensive players kind of shifted it. Maybe there's some other notes that I'm missing as well, but I know those 2 injuries played into it. Just before we go to Kyle, Blease brought it up. Adam brought it up. One of our 2 best bets last week. The one that didn't hit, we went 1 for 1 on our best bets last week, but we got burned by Josh Jacobs, the Raiders beating the Seattle Seahawks, which stunned me. The Raiders have been so bad this year on the road. And much like Adam, I was just kind of laughing to myself as he brought up his case. To me, like the Saw movies, this would be my torture chamber, is I have to bet on the Raiders again, or I have to bet a Raiders game again. They have burned me so many times this year. I'd rather walk on a floor of nails or needles than bet the Raiders at this point. They have absolutely tortured me, and how they've beaten me every time I either put money on them or against them. They seem to go the other way. Kyle, how do you feel about this game? Are you getting any better insight on how to bet the Raiders than Adam and myself?
I would like to yield the remainder of my time to the chair. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't like this game. I don't like the Raiders. I don't like the Chargers. The Chargers should be so much better than they are, and this is what the San Diego Chargers and the Los Angeles Chargers and whatever Chargers they are throughout their entire history. This is just who they are, right? They underperform. They don't do what they're supposed to do, and they suffer as a result. But then again, the Raiders are really bad this year. You know, they won 2 games in overtime, one against the Seahawks, which they honestly had no business winning. But one of the most dangerous things in all of life is somebody who's like put in a position where they're forced to compete for their job. And that's Josh McDaniels. I think he may have saved his job at this point with these last 2 wins. I don't think he's going to get fired at this point, but it's really hard to say. That said, the Raiders don't really do anything particularly great except for run the ball. They like Josh Jacobs is fantastic. They're the best rushing team in the NFL, and that's great for them. But I don't think running the ball is going to be enough to just get a win. Like they had to they had to like drop nearly 40 points, or was it 40 points against the Seattle Seahawks just to get that win. Now, granted, they had overtime in the process, but I just don't think they're going to be able to do that against the Chargers. Like I said, I don't think the Raiders do anything particularly well. The Chargers, they don't do anything particularly amazingly well, but Justin Herbert is a talented passer of the football, and he's got weapons. The Raiders aren't particularly great at stopping the pass. They can do it, but they're not amazing at it. So I think I would take most of maybe not the under, because I'm sure there'll probably be points scored, but as far as like the spread between the teams, I'm picking the Los Angeles Chargers, but I'm not picking them to cover. I'm not picking them to do anything spectacular. I'm just picking them to win, and that's it.
The Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Chargers on the money line and the over. I do think both of these offenses do impress today. I like what I'm seeing from Justin Herbert last week. Not only did he once again put up big stats, but that was a very big win. And to Kyle's point, I think Josh McDaniels might have saved his job the last 2 weeks. I think Brandon Staley is still fighting to save his job. The Chargers need to win. The Chargers need to make the playoffs. Otherwise, I think you may see Sean Payton as the head coach of the Chargers next year. So if Brandon Staley wants to stay in LA as head coach of the Chargers, he needs this win. The Chargers have performed well in their last 7 meetings on the road against the Raiders, whether it's in Oakland or in Vegas. They're 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 meetings on the road against the Raiders. I do like the Chargers for that reason and more. I do think the injury to Josh Jacobs will just limit him enough to not be as dynamic as he was last week. That said, you've already heard from me at this point. Betting a Chargers game or a Raiders game is more about how I just do it to torture myself every week. I try to put out picks for every game so I can help you guys make some money. But that said, this game is like trying to touch a hot stove. You're just waiting to get burned. So I'm probably avoiding it. I might throw the Chargers in the money line. I do like the over. The over is the only part of this game that I see because I think both defenses are bad. I think both quarterbacks are going to be chucking it today. That said, let's move to, if not one of the best matchups of the day, the best matchup of the day, and what could be a preview of an AFC championship game. It certainly was last year. The 9-2 Kansas City Chiefs traveling to play the 7-4 Cincinnati Bengals. This game is on CBS. You'll be hearing Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call. The Chiefs are a 2-point favorite. The over-under set at 53 points. Some gambling trends before we go around and break it down. The Chiefs are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games in December. The Bengals are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 home games. The Chiefs are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Cincinnati. An additional note on that, the Chiefs have lost their last 6 consecutive games in Cincinnati. They haven't won in Cincinnati since 1984. As for the totals, the under is 8-3 in the last 11 meetings between the two, and the over is 8-1 in the Chiefs' last 9 road games. Adam, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this massive matchup in the AFC?
Well, I think should be the most fun game of the day to watch. One thing that popped up this morning is Frank Clark now is questionable with an illness, so obviously that hurts Kansas City and advantage Cincinnati. Mixon still has not been cleared from concussion protocol. From what I've read this morning, it's very highly likely he'll miss this game. So Samaje Perine will obviously carry the load again. He had 17 carries last week, and Kyle probably can speak to that a little bit better. Perine can carry the load to help that Cincinnati offense keep Kansas City off the field. But, I mean, Joe Burrow at home right now catching points. The Cincinnati team has been playing really well. You know, going to Tennessee last week and winning that game really proved to me that, you know, they're getting back in stride. Jamar Chase, I believe, is back for this game, so that only enhances that as well. The over-under number is just so high. Like, again, if you can buy that down to around 50 or 49, just throw some money on it for a fun factor. There should be a lot of points in this game. Obviously, Kansas City is number 1 in the league at 29.6 points a game, and Cincinnati is not far behind at 25.9. So I think you can see a lot of aerial attack in this one. A couple player props that I like. One I've been riding for the last 6 weeks, and the number keeps creeping up, but he keeps covering it. It's Mahomes. He's at 302.5 today. He's gone over that number the last 6 games, and I've been riding that every single week. So that's been a cash cow for me. I think Jamar Chase coming back from injury, I would lean towards his 72.5 over his last 2 games before he got hurt. He had 15 receptions for 260 yards and 4 touchdowns. So obviously Jamar Chase is a game changer, but Burrow's is playing so well. I think this team is getting better every single week. And like I said, I think Kyle can speak a little bit more about that. The only question I have is if Perine can carry the offense enough running the football to keep Kansas City off the field, because either way, one of these teams will fall behind and they're going to be chucking the ball around to get back in it. So that's kind of my analysis on it. I would buy the over down a little bit and jump on that one. But again, that Mahomes over player prop is cash the last 6 weeks, so I would keep riding that one.
Okay, Kyle, let's hear what your take is for your Bengals hosting the Chiefs.
So full disclosure, I cover the Cincinnati Bengals for a living, but I am also a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and I don't hide that. So my advice for all of you is don't listen to what I say as far as like taking any gambling advice, because honestly, I refuse to gamble on the Bengals myself because I know that I'm biased as far as like, you know, picking a team. I always try to be unbiased with my analysis, but I'm not going to be honest, man. Like, you know, I would not bet on my advice on the Bengals. You know, that said, one thing I would say people should bet on is the Cincinnati Bengals to do everything they did last year, like verbatim. It hasn't been perfect this year, but they've done everything almost exactly the same way that they did it last year. They started out 0-2. They didn't start out 0-2 last year, but part of that is because Dalvin Cook supposedly fumbled, in week 1 of last year. And if that hadn't happened, the Bengals would have lost by a field goal. They would have started 0-2 because of the way they played against the Chicago Bears. Since then, they've picked themselves up, and they're at the same exact points right now that they were last season. They were 7-4, now they're 7-4. They're beating the Tennessee Titans. They're getting hot at the right time. So, whatever. I don't remember what the Bengals did this point last year, but whatever it was, pick them to have the exact same result. And that might not play out for you, but you have a much better chance of whatever they did last year, that they're going to do it again this year. I just hope the Super Bowl is a little bit different. But Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, 1 and 2 as far as best quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. Obviously, we all know Patrick Mahomes can't quite hold a candle to Joe Burrow, but that's okay because, the Bengals being 2-0 against him so far, I think they're going to do it again this year. But again, I'm a Bengals fan. Don't bet on what I say necessarily.
And I am seeing Joe Mixon might be out, and they have a bye week next week, so they could hold him back.
Yeah,
that is true, but Jamar Chase is back, though.
Thank you, Blease. I was just going to say, I believe Mixon's not only going to be out, but to Adam's point, I think a big injury in this one or absence is going to be Frank Clark with that illness. I think his lack of presence on the defensive line of the Chiefs, that just gives Joe Burrow more time to attack down the field. Something I want to make note of because I think it's getting lost. We're talking a lot about Burrow. Obviously, we're going to talk about Jamar Chase and his return. But this Bengals offensive line, they look so bad early in the year. It takes time. We talk a lot about offenses looking bad earlier in the year because of the bargaining agreement between the NFLPA and the NFL, where there isn't a lot of practice time. Training camps don't mean what they used to. A lot of these players, especially in the trenches, aren't getting the same kind of reps and opportunities to build cohesion across an offensive line. I think that's part of the reason why you saw a rebuilt offensive line of the Bengals struggle early on. Are they perfect? No, they still make some mistakes, but this offensive line is playing way better the last few weeks, and that's, again, without Jamar Chase. Add Jamar Chase back to the field. I expect him to play today, and whenever he's on the field, you got to put him in your fantasy lineup. You have to believe he's going to have a big day because the connection that he has with Burrow is just special. It is on another level. That said, there are too many trends that tell me the Bengals are going to cover this game to not go with it. So the Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Cincinnati to cover. We're going to buy the 1.5. We're going to make sure that we get above 3. So we're going to be at plus 3.5. I feel like this is a field goal game or a 2-point game. Adam's point is dead on. Patrick Mahomes, right now he's the MVP in the league. He's going to put up big numbers. It's just a question of Joe Burrow can keep pace. I think he will. Who wins this one is still undecided to me. I could easily see the Chiefs winning, but to me, the Bengals on the cover is the best play of the day. As for the over-under, I would lean towards the over. I'm not going to bet it myself, but because 53 is so high. But that said, I lean towards the over, but it's the Bengals to cover. That's my pick of this game. We're going to end our NFL coverage for NFL Sunday this week with the Sunday Night Football game of the week between the Indianapolis Colts and the Dallas Cowboys. The Colts come in at 4-7-1, the Cowboys at 8-3. Guys, we got 7 minutes before we're going to end this show, so we're going to go through our picks decently quick, and then I want to get a best bet from all of you, one best bet that you'd like to make for this one. But before we do, let's get to Sunday Night Football. The spread on this one, Cowboys minus 10.5. The over-under set at 44 points. Adam, what's your pick for Cowboys at Colts?
So two teams really good against the pass. Indy's fifth. Dallas is number 1 against the pass. But both teams can give up yards on the ground. The one thing I would look at in this game is I would buy the points up and take Indy because I like teams that play good defense and can run the football. And Dallas is 24th in the league of giving up on the rush. So I think Indy can keep this game close. I'd buy the points up and take Indy. But the two things I would look at in this game is Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is going to be under fire in this game tonight with this Dallas pass rush. So I would look at an interception player prop with him. But I would also look at his under 211.5 passing yards because I'll be honest with you, Matt Ryan back there, he's not been great. He's been sustainable, but he might get knocked out of this game. He's going to be under fire. I think Indy's really going to have to really heavily rely on the run. But I do like interception Ryan and under 211. But also at the same time with Indianapolis being really good against the pass. I do like Dak at a plus 130 to throw an interception in this game too. So a couple player props, but I would buy it up to about 13 or so, and I would definitely take Indy with the points in this game.
Kyle, give me a quick pick for Colts Cowboys before we get to some best bets.
My perspective on this one is take the Cowboys. The Colts have been having a little bit of a resurgence with Jeff Saturday, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Cowboys have the best pass rush in the NFL, period. And they're going to bother Matt Ryan. And the Cowboys don't have the best run defense, but I don't think Jonathan Taylor has been showing us this year that he's going to be able to do enough to take advantage of that. So I think the Cowboys are going to, win. The Cowboys are going to cover. And that's all I have to say about it.
The Butt Fumble Sports pick for this one is Dallas on the money line and the under. I really like Adam's analysis. I think Matt Ryan is in the gun sights of this Dallas defense. Micah Parsons gets a sack. I think they're going to converge on him all night. That said, Jonathan Taylor could keep this game at least close enough where the under is a strong play. I don't see too many points in it. Not touching the spread. Think it gets a little crazy. Could see some garbage time touchdowns. Don't want to be caught in either way. I'll start the best bets segment for this one. The Butt Fumble Sports best bets so far this year have gone off at 17-8. We were 1-1 last week. The Raiders burned us. Classic case of that. The Butt Fumble Sports best bets for today for NFL Week 13 is the Jacksonville Jaguars and Detroit Lions over 49.5 points. After you buy a 1.5, we're getting that at minus 140. And the Tennessee Titans at +6 after we buy a 1.5. That's also at minus 140. Adam, what's your best bet of the day?
I'm with you on that Tennessee. I think it might up to 6. I think that's a really good play. And the other one, I like Washington with the money line as well.
And Kyle, what's your best bet for NFL Week 13?
My best bet for the week is the Seahawks to cover against the Los Angeles Rams. I just think the Rams, they ain't got nothing. The Seahawks are going to smoke them.
Appreciate everyone joining us on YouTube and on Twitter Space. What a fast hour and a half that it's been. Please follow us at Sports Fumble on Twitter and follow Adam at Spotter AJ, as well as Kyle at Kyle Phelps. These guys do such a great job, bring so much great analysis, and you can tell they know their stuff. Appreciate all they do for the show and all they do for Butt Fumble Sports. As always, Blease, couldn't do this without you. We will now switch over from Twitter Space to TikTok Live. For those joining us on YouTube, please join us there as well. So YouTube, TikTok, at Butt Fumble Sports. We're going to go through every game once again with player props and gambling, but we're also going to answer your fantasy football questions, your betting questions. So if you want to reach out to me directly and we can get some engagement there, that's what we're going to be doing for the next hour and a half, taking you up to game time at 1. So appreciate everyone joining us this morning. Please go over to TikTok Live at Butt Fumble Sports and watch us there. But good luck on NFL Week 13. I hope you have a lot of cash tickets. Adam, Kyle, Blease, appreciate you, as well as Tommy, Meta Party Vibes, Carol, John, Pete, everyone that's joined us.